A lone cowboy discovers a mysterious Apache woman by the river, her torn clothes hiding a story of survival and strength. What happens next will restore your faith in humanity. Don't miss this powerful frontier tale of trust and courage. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more unforgettable stories of kindness and bravery. The sun hung low over the quiet plains of the American frontier, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold as Daniel Carter guided his horse along the riverbank. The day had been long, filled with dust, silence, and the steady rhythm of hooves against dry earth. This part of the land was known for its stillness, where even the wind seemed to whisper instead of roar. Daniel preferred it that way. After years of riding across unsettled lands, he had learned to find comfort in quiet places where trouble rarely lingered, and a man could hear his own thoughts. As his horse slowed near the edge of the river, the gentle sound of flowing water broke the silence. It was a peaceful sound, one that usually brought relief after a tiring journey. But today, something else caught his attention, something unexpected. His eyes narrowed slightly as he noticed movement ahead. Near the river's edge stood a young Apache woman, her figure partially reflected in the shimmering water. She was carefully washing her clothes, her hands moving slowly, almost as if every motion carried caution. Daniel instinctively pulled back on the reins, stopping his horse at a distance. He didn't want to startle her. In these lands, a sudden presence could mean danger, and misunderstandings often led to consequences no one intended. From where he sat, he studied her quietly. Her posture was tense, her shoulders slightly hunched, as though she carried more than just physical exhaustion. There was a quiet alertness in the way she moved, like someone who had learned to expect trouble at any moment. It didn't take long for Daniel to notice the condition of her clothing. The dress she wore was badly torn, the fabric frayed and uneven, barely holding together. It wasn't the kind of damage caused by time alone. It spoke of struggle, of hardship that went beyond the ordinary challenges of frontier life. Dust and faint stains marked the cloth, and even from a distance, it was clear she had been through something difficult. Daniel felt a tightening in his chest, a silent acknowledgement that her situation was far from simple. For a moment, he considered turning away. Life on the frontier had taught him that not every situation was his to step into. Tensions between settlers and Apache tribes were real, and trust was often fragile if it existed at all. One wrong move could turn a quiet moment into a dangerous encounter. But as he watched her continue washing those worn pieces of cloth, something about the scene held him in place. It wasn't just curiosity, it was a deeper sense of responsibility he couldn't ignore. Slowly, Daniel swung his leg over the saddle and dismounted, his boots meeting the ground with a soft thud. He made sure his movements were calm and deliberate, avoiding anything that might seem threatening. His horse remained still behind him, trained to wait without fuss. Daniel took a few careful steps forward, keeping enough distance to show respect. He knew that in moments like this, space was as important as words. Every action mattered, every gesture carried meaning. Clearing his throat lightly, he called out a greeting, his voice steady but gentle. He chose his tone carefully, aiming to sound neither commanding nor uncertain. The woman froze at the sound, her hands stopping mid-motion. Slowly she turned to face him. Her eyes met his, wide with surprise, but there was something else in them too, something deeper than fear. It was strength, quiet and unspoken, as though she had faced far worse than a stranger by the river. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. The river continued its steady flow beside them, indifferent to the tension hanging in the air. Daniel raised his hands slightly, not in surrender but in reassurance, showing he meant no harm. He didn't step any closer. Instead, he waited, allowing her the choice of how this moment would unfold. In that silence, filled only by the sound of water and wind, two strangers stood facing each other, separated by history, yet connected by something far more human. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The river moved steadily between them, its soft current carrying away the tension that hung in the air. Daniel kept his posture calm, his hands raised just enough to show he carried no threat. He understood that in a place like this, silence often spoke louder than words. The woman's eyes studied him carefully, searching for any sign of danger or deception. Her breathing was steady but cautious, as if she had learned to control fear rather than let it control her in uncertain moments. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet and slightly strained, shaped by exhaustion and distance. Her English was broken, each word chosen with effort, but her meaning was clear enough. She explained that she had been separated from her group days ago. Since then, she had been moving alone, surviving with whatever she could find. The land that once felt familiar had turned harsh and unforgiving. Her journey had not only tested her strength, but also her endurance, leaving marks that could be seen in her appearance. Daniel listened without interrupting, giving her the space to finish. He had met many people across the frontier, but there was something different about her story. It wasn't just the hardship, it was the quiet determination behind it. She wasn't asking for pity, only sharing what had happened. Daniel respected that. He nodded slightly, acknowledging her words, and kept his tone soft when he responded. He chose simple language, careful not to overwhelm her, making sure his meaning stayed clear and respectful. Reaching slowly into his saddlebag, Daniel pulled out a small canteen of water. He held it out in front of him, not stepping closer than necessary. It was a simple offer, but on the frontier, water could mean the difference between strength and collapse. Along with it, he took out a clean piece of cloth, nothing special, just something spare he carried for travel. He placed both items on a rock between them, allowing her to take them on her own terms without feeling pressured. The woman hesitated, her eyes moving between Daniel and the items he had set down. Trust did not come easily, especially after days of struggle and uncertainty. For a brief moment, it seemed as though she might refuse. But then, slowly, she stepped forward. Her movements were still careful, but there was less tension than before. She reached for the canteen first, holding it tightly before taking a small drink. The relief on her face, though subtle, was unmistakable. After a moment, she picked up the cloth, running her fingers over its surface as if confirming it was real. The torn edges of her dress made the need obvious. But it was more than just clothing. It was dignity, something often overlooked in harsh conditions. She looked up at Daniel again, her expression softer now, the sharp edge of fear replaced with cautious gratitude. She didn't smile, but there was a quiet acknowledgement in her eyes that words didn't need to express. Daniel remained where he was, giving her space even as the atmosphere between them began to change. He understood that trust wasn't built in grand gestures, but in small, consistent actions. This moment wasn't about proving anything. It was about showing respect. The river continued to flow beside them, no longer a barrier but a steady presence in the background. The distance between them no longer felt as wide as it had just moments before. In that quiet exchange, something shifted in a way Daniel hadn't expected. It wasn't just about offering help to someone in need. It was about recognizing a shared humanity that went beyond differences in language, culture, or history. The frontier was a place where survival often hardened people, but it also revealed moments of unexpected understanding. Daniel realized that strength wasn't always about taking action quickly or boldly, but sometimes about patience and awareness. As the sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows across the land, the tension that once filled the space had softened into something more balanced. The woman stood a little straighter now, her energy slowly returning. Daniel adjusted his hat slightly, glancing toward the horizon before looking back at her. There were still uncertainties ahead, questions left unanswered, but this moment had created a foundation. It was small, almost unnoticeable to anyone else, yet it carried a quiet significance. Without the need for many words, both of them understood that this encounter had changed something. It wasn't a complete solution to her struggles, nor did it erase the challenges of the world around them, but it was a beginning, a simple act of kindness that carried weight beyond its size. Daniel knew he would remember this moment, not for its difficulty, but for its meaning. And as the river continued its endless journey, it carried with it the memory of two strangers choosing understanding over fear.